Joe Diomede here, TTRP TV. Coming at you from Toulouse. Yeah, so a little change of venue here. I moved out of sleepy Montblanc into Toulouse, and I'm sitting here with my friend Christian. And, some people, they see life and there's things that get in the way, and, they have a lot of reasons not to do stuff, or they go back and they say, yeah, well, this happened to me when I was younger, and that's why I am where I am today. Well, Christian here, he's had just a few of those small little obstacles thrown his way. right, Christian?
Just a couple, man.
just a couple.
Not too much.
Heroin addict for 17 years. For 20 years of his life, 10 years of it was spent behind bars in prison from myriad of different offenses we could talk about later. Abused as a child, physically and
Sexually, physically, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang. So anyway, and here he is with his saxophone on his shirt.
Sax maniac.
Looking fit, feeling fit, 60 years old. 60 years.
Just a couple of days ago, 60 years old, man, and I feel after age. It's cool. It's all going on.
And there you go. And actually, on his 60th birthday, him and I were worked with another friend, Ben. We were renovating an apartment. So, none of this. He didn't let any of this get in his way. And I'm going to tell you let him tell us his story, because it is just incredible. And the saxophone does fit into it, as do many, many other things. Christian. Here we are, man.
Hello, man. It's good to see you. Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to be back in Montbrun and Montesquieu and Toulouse and en France. Voilà, c'est ça.
Yeah, very good. Oh, yeah, forgot to say, he is from England.
Yeah, man. This is great. It's
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So, Christian, your first time in a police station for being a naughty boy was what age?
I was 6. Man. They didn't close the door because I was a minor, but I was in the cell. I was waiting for my mum to come and get me, and I was swinging my legs because I'd stolen a bicycle from some block of flats up from the school I was at, and came back, showed it all off to my friends, and the teachers collared me, and before I could escape, I got much better escaping later on, let me assure you.
Yeah. We'll hear about that one later.
They grabbed me and pulled me in the office, and they left the bike leaning against the fence, and Mr. Policeman went past and saw his son's bike leaning against the fence. So I stole a policeman's son's bike. He recognised it, came into the school and said, what the hell's my son's bike doing there? This boy said a boy up the road lent it to him. Nuh-uh, he stole it. Police station.
There you go. The beginning of a career.
The beginning of career, yeah.
So you didn't get arrested. Your mom picked you up. 6, but your first time, you have been institutionalized since 12?
12 years old, I was smashing up building sites with my compatriots, my friends. I was bunking off school. I think I didn't attack the headmaster. He wanted to attack me with corporal punishment, and I hit him. I just said, no way, and I hit him. I was working on the market, earning money at 12, and then in the end, the school knew it. They expelled me knowing I was going to the courts for the crime of criminal damage, and they kind of knew what was going to go down anyway, and that's exactly what went down. I went to the care homes. And the only reason I was saved, my sorry ass was saved in the care homes, because I was violent. The kids who weren't violent, they got sexually abused at night, and I could hear the screams, and it never happened to me because I was violent.
Right. So, strange enough, that violence, yeah, like you said, has saved you. And so, just to go back quickly to your parents. So, 12 years old, you're in care homes. And why is that? You said about your dad, yeah.
My father was gay in the 1960s, so as a smokescreen, gay men in the 60s, rather than go to prison, they get married, they have children, and they have to pretend they're not gay. And then obviously all the dysfunctions come out sideways. In his case, it was alcoholism, and the alcohol was beating up my mum, beating up me, my siblings, and it was just a house where, I like to say at the beginning, I'm writing my memoir at the beginning, I said my parents were neither wealthy nor poor, they were just poor in the decision of a life mate.
Yeah, and that decision affected you big time.
Affected me big time. I watched him take money from the gas meter, and I thought he was stealing it. So when he left the house, I stole it. He was probably borrowing it, but I stole it, and I bought loads of sherbet, and I flooded the playground with yellow, green, and all different coloured sherbets. My first experience with dealing powders, and the teacher was like, "Where the hell did all this sherbet come from?" And it was him, and then so I was in trouble. I probably got the biggest. He used to beat me with dog chains and shit, the leather end or the chain end, depending on the extent of his wrath. And I bet I got beat with the chain end that night. Yeah.
Oh man! And so by 12 years old, did he die? I mean, why were you put into care homes at 12?
No, I think somehow my mother managed to get rid of him, but it was too late by then. He taught me, he taught me violence, which I took to the playground, and I was a really violent kid, and I was fighting. I had to be the toughest one in the school. He taught me to steal, so I started stealing and criminal damage. Basically, I just grew up in a socially disorganised neighbourhood in Clapham, and then when my mum had the opportunity to move to a different town, 30 miles outside of London, she grabbed it with both hands, but it was too late. Even change it, they call it a geographical cure. There was no geographical cure for me. I was fucked, and they just took me out. She moved to Farnborough in Hampshire, 30 miles outside of London. It didn't do the dangest thing. I ended up just mixing with all the other dysfunctional kids, and we just formed gangs, and we were fighting in gangs, we were criminal damaging in gangs, and it was just like, it was written on the wall, man, where we were all going.
Yeah, yeah. So let's jump ahead then. So so there's your childhood and sets you up. So you said you were telling me 17 years a heroin addict, 10 out of 20 years in prison out of a 20-year period of your life. Yeah. So how did you wind up in proper prison for the first time?
Well, basically, it went from the care homes, and even before the care homes, we were sniffing glue, and then we went from sniffing glue to smoking weed, and then in my case, it was a gateway drug. It was weed, and then it was LSD, it was barbiturates, and my sister said to me, "Why are you sniffing glue all the time? Why don't you just smoke weed like Bob and Ellen do?" And I said, "Who's Bob and Ellen?" And she said, "They live in the house." And I went, "All right." Knocked on their door a day later. "Yeah, come in." What she didn't realise, well, they weren't just smoking weed. Within 12 months of knocking on the front door, I'd gone from smoking weed, sniffing glue to smoking weed, to injecting heroin, and I was pretty much addicted to heroin by the end of the year.
How old?
18 years old. Then we kind of got into stealing cars. A couple of years before then, I'd already been in Borstal for stealing cars, and then the next time when it came out, you'd steal the cars, but then you'd be old enough to buy alcohol as well. So then you get the credit cards and the checkbooks in the car. You'd steal the car. You'd buy the booze. You'd get drunk. You'd crash the car. You'd nick another car, crash it. We taught ourselves how to drive, crashing cars. I don't even know how.
Do you have a driver's license now?
Now I do, but I didn't get one until I was driving cars illegally until I was like 32 years old or something. I never had a license. So I just used to drive. But yeah, man, it was crazy. We just taught ourselves to drive, and we crash, and we can nick another one, and we buy some booze, and it's just...
And then you got arrested.
Then I got arrested. I did one Borstal with 13 months, then another Borstal. Borstal's young boys' prison. So we ran away from the care home for the final time when I was 15, and when I got caught that time, I was able to. Then they could put you in small man's prison, which is what happened. Then 19, they starved me up. You're not supposed to go into men's prisons until you're 21, but I was such a control problem. They starved me up at 19, and I went into the men's prisons at 19 instead of 21.
Oh, so they put you in the advanced program. That was nice.
It's an advanced program, man, because the governor just said, "Listen, look, we know you evolved. We know what you're going to be like. So forget this." The young boys' prison, they called it the Doll's House. It was like a remand centre for young men, the Doll's House. So he just took me out the Doll's House, and he said, "Listen, I know what you're like. You're going in the men's prison now." But the good thing about that was, rather than putting me in general population, they put me working in the kitchen, which was kind of an exclusive little block. The living quarters were an exclusive block. The working environment was just like 20 people or something, and it was a much better deal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, your life seemed to be full of these, shall we say, guardian angels getting you through these crazy situations. So your first time in prison, you did a couple of years for car theft. What was it? And fraud, wasn't it?
First Borstals was 13 months, then 17 months, and then the next prison sentence was 6 months, and then the next one was lots of remand sessions with through. But yeah, it was stealing cars. Then it went on to credit card fraud and shoplifting, because by then I was into the drugs. And, the Sony Walkman was a big thing then. It's a very small item. You could just walk into a shop and I'm having that. And then you could sell it for a reasonable. It might keep you in drugs for a couple of days, few days, rather than just one day at a time. So yeah, we'd be stealing, shoplifting, credit cards, forging signatures,
all the stuff to keep you illegal and behind bars.
Acquisitive crime. We needed the money to get the drugs and da 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 da. So yeah, this continued for until I was 35 years old, basically. In interim, I had some children. I had an 8-year-old son. When I finally decided I'd had enough of this shit and wanted to change my life, most of my friends had died of heroin. Prison saved me. Every time I went to prison, I got a cure.
Right.
And then I'd come back out and there'd be a tsunami of drugs. And I'd get back into drugs, I'd go back to prison, there'd be a cure. All my friends didn't have that cure, they just had a tsunami. Right. So they all died in the tsunami.
Yeah, yeah. And did you teach yourself, you were saying that you taught yourself saxophone?
I taught myself to read music with a little red book in Borstal when I was 15, 16 years old. And then I didn't pick up an instrument until I was 18 years old.
Okay, that's an odd way to do it, isn't it?
Really odd. It's really odd. But I taught myself up to cadences, and I went, oh shit, I won't need that after. Oh, yeah, it's classical shit. Even though I learnt classical later on. But yeah, I taught myself up to cadences, and then picked up a guitar, and I learned the chords and strumming. Then I met a Spanish guy who'd been smuggling heroin from India to Spain, and the plane got rerouted to Heathrow. Not a good idea back in the 80s. Worst drug capture place ever. So he was doing a couple of years, and he was a classically trained Spanish guitarist, and he kind of taught me how to play some bits of Recuerdos de la Alhambra and Concerto de Aranjuez and all this sort of stuff, really good classical stuff. And I taught myself how to read music. And guitar music says P for your thumb, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for your fingers.
Right. Okay, so it was easy after what you taught yourself.
The guitar fretboard, and you can look at the P, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the notes, and you find the nearest note which works with that finger. And you've got enough time in prison to do that shit, rather than sight reading. And I taught myself some really good classical pieces.
Yeah, and then you read philosophy books. And so your time in the prison, you put to good use. You read a lot of philosophy. You taught yourself music. And when did the sax come in?
It came along in 1985.
Okay.
95, sorry.
95. Okay.
95, yeah. Taught myself to play saxophone. Then that was 95. Then 97, I went to rehab because of my kids. Looked at my kids and just went, man, they're just going to be, my boys are going to be in and out of prison and drugs all their life. My daughter's going to become drugs and prostitution all her life. And I'm not having that, man. Fuck that. No, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop that cycle now.
Yeah, because didn't you say before, besides every time you left prison, they used to say to you when you used to leave?
Week. See you next week, man.
Yeah.
And the thing is, every time I left prison, I was like, I'm not going back. And I meant it. But, like I say, that tsunami of drugs and crime. My other friends, and this is the difference between me and those who died, I can't wait to get out and have some smack.
Them.
I can't wait to get out and have some smack. I said, you're fucking crazy. I can't wait to get out and have none. And I'd last weeks or months without any. But then that tsunami would have inevitably... So that was the difference. I always knew I didn't want to take it, and they always couldn't wait to get out and take it. So I went to rehab. I looked at my kids. My son was 8 years old. My babies were 18 months old. And then I just finally, I wrote to a rehab twice in the previous 10 years. And the first 2 times, I just said, no, man, you're just trying to avoid a custodial sentence. You don't want to go to prison, do you? You want to come here and thinking it's an easy way out. Right. No, it was not an easy way out. No. Third time, they said, hey, man, your letter, you sound genuine. You sound ready. We'll come and interviewed me, and the judge said to me, right, 2 years probation order with a condition of residence, you stay at that home, and if you leave that home before they say you're ready, you'll be back in front of one of my colleagues, and he'll be giving you a 4-year prison sentence in a couple of weeks or months instead of me.
Right. Okay.
That made me stay.
And you also said something of the term that if you have a wife and kids, they in prison, what do they say? That's something that draws you.
In the rehab, you mean? Oh, sorry, hang on. The stakes in conformity, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a criminological term, basically, stakes in conformity. So when you go to prison, before you get nicked and go to prison, you've probably got a wife, you might have some kids, you've got a house, a car, a job. These are called your stakes in conformity. These are the reasons that you conform with society, because you don't want to lose those stakes you've got. Sure. You go to prison, you lose all of it. You know, your wife might come and visit for a little while. With the kids and all that, and then 6 months down the line, Johnny sends you a letter and says, your missus, she's seeing Freddie now and what have you, and all that goes, and then the house is gone, then you've lost your home, you've lost your job anyway, you've lost your car, everything goes. Then you're released from prison with a week's money in your back pocket. Right. And they're going, right, now you've got to go straight. And the prison officer goes, see you next week. Yeah. There's a reason for that. Yeah. So... I'll get back to that stakes in conformity because it was the fuck it process we were talking about, Matza, and the desistance process, which when I get to go into university later on, I'll explain that then. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're speaking you're using terms, and that's because you went to university. And where did that happen to be? At your first university?
The first one was Cardiff University, and the irony was, after leaving rehab and working my way up the construction ladder up to general foreman and assistant manager, and meanwhile in my spare time working my way up the stage musical ladder of playing with solo and with bands, and then playing with the same band for 15 years, I got made redundant. 2012, the company I was working with, they hung around for few years after the financial bubble burst, and then it was they just crashed. I was made redundant, and I was just didn't like working in offices in construction. I don't like working in offices today. I need to work outside generally. And I thought, my partner at the time, Emma, she'd just finished university degree in social work and stuff like that. So she went into working with Alzheimer's disease and older people within the community. And I thought, you know what? No one in my family's ever gone to university. I'm going to apply to university. So I applied to do a popular music course in Cardiff University, which was 10 miles from home. And I didn't have enough UCAS points, which is the educational points you need in this country, in England, to get into university. But what I did have was musical experience for 20 years, 15 years. So because I was applying for a musical course, the course leader was a saxophone player, and he gave me an audition and said, can you play to this? He played Watermelon Man on the piano.
Okay.
And I played some sax to Watermelon Man. I played the changes and I played it. He said, you're in.
Cool.
And I was in university. Another one of those meant to be moments was next door to my university was Cardiff Prison. And 3 floors of stairs. For 2 years I was going up and down this glass-walled staircase looking inside the prison. I could see the laundry people, I could see the kitchen hot plates driving around, I could see the prisoners, the staff, the screws, all of it. And
by that time you knew prisons.
I knew prisons pretty damn well, but I'd left that 15 years behind me, I think, 15, 20 years behind. So when it came to work experience, I said to my course leader, how much interaction has there been between the prison and the university? And he said, none, as far as I know. I said, right, well, here's a quick précis of my life story, which I didn't tell you before because you might not have accepted me into university. And I want to go in there and I want to teach prisoners how to play music because that's what saved my bacon. That's what saved my life, was learning music in prisons. And I want to go in there and try and help some people. He said, wow, what an amazing idea. Yeah, do it. I did it. Then I was in and out. I evaluated a music program from Bristol who were going into Cardiff Prison and helping the prisoners, and I did some work with them, and I read loads of papers for my dissertation, and one particular paper was called Matter, Fatalism, what was it? Matter and the Fatalism of the Desistance Process, something similar.
Desistance?
Desistance. You persist in crime or you desist from crime.
Okay.
So desistance is giving up crime.
Right.
So Matter, the desistance process, something like that. If you Google that, you'll find it. Matza, M-A-T-Z-A. And this paper, I was like, fuck, it was talking about people being released with a week's money in their pocket, expected to go straight, and then all the odds are stacked against them, and for 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever, they try their hardest to get a job and somewhere to live and everything else. And before you know it, they're just like, fuck it. And they go back to dealing drugs or burgling or stealing cars or whatever their particular poison was prior to being arrested. Yeah. And they just go, fuck it. And they can't get out of that sticky situation.
Well, see you next week, built into the system.
See you next week. Yeah, I mean, because my personal opinion is the prison estate in the UK, there's no rehabilitation. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-propitiating society where, what are you going to do with 20,000 prison officers? You make them redundant.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep the prisoners rolling, keep the money rolling. And
it had to come from you. Well, tell the story about the sax in the window.
Yeah, the sax in the window. Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah, man. When I came out of prison in Coldingley, this guy was like, "Can you teach me how to play my saxophone?" Because he didn't have a clue. And I said, "Well, I don't really know how either. I'd only blown the saxophone a couple of times a few years previously." I said, "Tell you what, give me the sax, give me the book." He gave it that. I went in my cell, I taught a little bit, and then the next day I'd teach him it. I'd learn a bit, teach him. I was released from prison. I kept looking at this saxophone in the window, and I was like, "Yeah, man. I know I can play a guitar and I can sing a little bit and I can play some blues scales, man. But I want to be a sax player, man." So I was going to smash the window of the shop in the night and just run away with the saxophone, smash and grab.
Of course.
As you do, man.
As you do, yeah.
And then I thought, Christian, fucking stop being so stupid, man. Why don't you just go in there and ask the guy if you can, I was dealing some drugs at the time. Why don't you go in there and pay a deposit and pay instalments? And the guy went, yeah, man, give me the deposit. And within a week, I had a saxophone.
Okay. Nice.
Wrote down the blues scale on a bit of paper, got a fingering chart, fingered out how to play the notes, worked out the blues scale in one key, and let's go to another key. And then over the next 5-10 years, I taught myself how to play saxophone until I went to jazz college in Chichester, which is near where I live at the moment, and did 2 years jazz college. Learned up to a standard where I could join a band. I was invited to join a band, and then I left the jazz college because I was in a band. What more did I need the jazz college for?
Yeah, cool.
And I played with the same band for 15 years, including 2 gigs on a couple of stages at Glastonbury.
Wow. Whoa, okay.
15 years and 2 gigs at Glastonbury, the Red Bull stage and the Shangri-La stage back in 2005, 6, 7 or something.
Right. That's what I like about you. I mean, Christian, you have that brutal honesty. You just throw it out there. When you bought the saxophone, I was dealing drugs at the time. Some people would want to keep that quiet, but brutal honesty seems to be your way, yeah?
Rehab, they taught you. When I went to rehab, they completely wiped the slate clean, They just sort of, zap your brain. back to a clean slate, and then they rewrite your story. They help you rewrite your story, and it was about empowerment, but it was also about being honest with yourself and other people. And there was to such a point where if you, it was a terrible place to be, because if you go in big group meetings, there'd be 30 students and 5 members of staff in the group therapy session, and you'd all be sitting there, it'd be dead silence, and you know you're in that room for 2 hours, and you're waiting for someone to fucking throw a bomb at that person over there, and it might be you that day. You never know. You go, and you, as for your behaviour, I've had enough of your da 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 da. And also, people could pull you individually and say, do you know what? And they'd say, can I have a word? And you don't do it in front of other people, because then that causes friction and toxicity. Yeah. So you take someone out of the room, can I have a word? So that was the thing. As soon as you heard someone have, can I have a word, you go, oh, fuck, here we go. But they pull you out of the room and they go, do you know what? Do you know what I really like about you? And they'd hit you up with something really positive about yourself, and you go, whew. Or they'd just say, do you know, your behaviour in there just now, I can't, what you just did in there, or what you just said to Rachel in there or something, and but it was really right about encouraging honesty and helping each other grow as individuals, right. And being honest with yourself, with the members of staff, and and that's why my life is so honest now, brutally honest. And the memoir I'm writing now is just some really fucking shit things I did, as well as some really good and successful things I did, but it's all going down on the page.
Yeah. Hey, I don't think anyone's closet is fully clean.
You've got to be honest. You have to be completely honest, because also, if you're going to write 250 pages of memoir, and then someone exposes one little lie on chapter 7, then what happens to the rest of it?
I'm sorry, it's not going to be 250 pages, Christian.
No, I know. Well, it's almost 300 at the moment already.
And where are you up to?
No, I actually deleted loads this morning and just went, do you know what? I just went from one funny story, deleted the load of shit detail in the between, and went straight to another funny story, because it's just like minutiae. It's just not needed. I just deleted that because I can pretend that bit went that long, rather. It was still a busking trip in France, but I just thought, well, that with those guys was enough. Why do I have to mention those guys and those guys? Get rid of it and go.
It's hard. I mean, as an author of a very big book with lots of minutiae in it, I can tell you, don't make it too big.
No, but don't be too detailed. It doesn't need all that detail. You'd rather, and the thing is, autobiography is every minute of your life from beginning to end. Right. Memoir is not that. It's just sections of your life that are really relevant and important, and you stitch it all together, and then just suddenly go, and in the end, look what happened to me.
Yeah. And then, come on, you're skipping the best part. Where did you get your master's from, and how did that happen?
That happened. I got my master's from Masters in Criminological Research, a 12-month master's course in Darwin College, Cambridge University.
Cambridge University. Heroin addict, thief.
Thief, defraudster, Cambridge University. Yeah, now the thing was, it was all about that fucking paper I told you about. Fuck it, and the desistance process. Out of the 20, 30 papers I read to write my 20,000 word dissertation, or maybe it was only a 10,000 one actually. Yeah, I think undergrad was only a 10,000, tiny little dissertation. It was maybe 15, 20 papers that I read. And there was only one paper that I felt inspired to contact the email at the bottom and ask, what the hell, where does this paper from? Do you know any more papers like this? Because it was so good. And it was like R.A. Ruth Armstrong, my benefactor, 325 at cam.ac.uk, which to me was gobbledygook at the time. I had no idea what that meant. I emailed the person, and she wrote back and said, hi, my name's Ruth. One of my students is also doing music programs in prison. She sings for King's College Choir here at Cambridge University, and she's taking small choirs into Grendon and Whitemoor Prison near Cambridge. And I was like, Cambridge University?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so she said, well, listen, be in touch with Jasmine, this girl, and I got in touch. She copied her into the email, and she said, we're having a symposium next month called The Subversive Good. Why don't you come along and take part and all that, which was a 3-hour drive. I just drove there and took part in it, and there was an a cappella choir in the background, and then there was questions and answers, and afterwards I said, can I get 10 minutes of your time before I drive back to Wales? She said, I've got to go and get my kid from school. Here's my address. Come to my house. I went to her house. She cooked me dinner and everything. And, recently I said to her, I meet her when I go to Cambridge even now. And I said to her, yeah, but I mean, what, how did that happen? You just suddenly said, come to Cambridge and I'll be your supervisor. That was a year of, she wasn't doing any supervision, she was doing research that year instead of lecturing and all that. So she couldn't be my supervisor. But regardless, I got in and someone else was my supervisor. And she said, well, anyone that will drive 3 hours to a symposium and back, just on the off chance, then surely they're going to be good enough to apply themselves and then. But also, she said to me, after feeding me and hearing my life story and suggesting I come to Cambridge University, she said, go back and do well at your degree and then apply to come and I'll be your supervisor. I got best dissertation of the year 2015-16, best business project of the year 2015-16. So she should do well, and I went and did well.
That was in Cardiff.
The undergrad before, yeah. So they were my credentials,
Right.
And as well as I mentioned to Ben this morning, I had to write a sample paper of my work, and it was basically 50% of it was autobiographical, ethnography they call it, and the other half was applying the criminological research to my life story, and it was all referenced in like a proper paper.
Right.
And it was entitled "Maintaining a Vision of a Future." And my vision of my future was to be a musician and play on stage with live bands when I was a little shitty little junkie in and out of jail and in this horrible place called Farnborough where everyone else was a junkie. But all the way through it, I was trying to play guitar, I was learning to be a musician. And my vision of my future was blinkered tunnel vision. I want to be a musician.
Yeah. Well, that's you kept that vision alive. You go to Cambridge. You get your master's in criminology. Criminology. Yeah. And so what did you do? And so what did you do with that degree then?
What did I do with that degree? Nothing.
Okay, tell us. Come on, but what did you, about the kitchen? I love that story.
Oh yeah, after the degree, man. After the degree, I love my college at Darwin so much that I asked the catering department, the head of the catering department, could I get a job working there? And I did. I was working serving food for 8 months because I owed them $3,000. The college lent me £3,000, £3,000. And I was in the bar every single night, and I was like, I became a celebrity when I thought I was going to be like, pilloried for being an ex-junkie criminal in Cambridge University. No, everyone was going, "Chris, come here, listen to me, meet my mate, Christian, tell him your story. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
So when you say you're in the bar every night, so, after heroin, did you do 12-step programs?
I can't be dealing with that shit. No, I still smoke. After heroin, I gave up the heroin and the crack because they're like bad drugs, and then I went on to the good drugs of ecstasy and magic mushrooms, sniffing Charlie instead of smoking the crack pipe. Okay. And I did another 10 years of that.
Okay. And where are you at now?
It was fun. But now I'm now I've got a cup of tea. Yeah, I mean, you've been with me on my birthday. I was the only one drinking on my birthday. I drank a couple of bottles of wine and I just smoked loads of fags. And now I'm just like, let's stop drinking and smoking again because, So
you feel you keep your wits enough that you could say, "Oh, enough's enough. Stop this."
They said to me, "You'll have to go to meetings, NA meetings and AA meetings for the rest of your life." And I've been to 2 of those meetings in my life, and that is self-denigration. My name's Christian, and I'm a shit junkie, alcoholic, and I'm so shit, and I'm so shit. Yeah. Like, how are you supposed to wander around and succeed in this world when all you're doing is denigrating your own self every week, or in fact, most of them are addicted to 3 nights a week. Yeah. 3 nights a week, telling everyone what a piece of shit you are.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it didn't work for you. I mean, I had friends that it has worked for, and it has, exactly. To each his own. And that's how I like. I like you got your brutal honesty. You keep your visions, and you're doing it. You got your Cambridge. You got your masters, and you've done a lot of cool stuff. Saxophone, and I've met you a couple times here in France.
Unbelievable, because like I say, but people say to me like, you've wasted the first half of your life. Now, I've done a TED talk before in Cambridge after I've graduated. I've done talks at my good friend of mine in Cambridge's sociology department, and I've given interviews in Tbilisi, one of which you've seen is on my YouTube channel.
Tbilisi, just threw it out there. He lived in Tbilisi for a while. Tbilisi, Georgia.
That's the thing, and so, but I start my talks, I say I had the good fortune of spending 10 years in prison. And I really mean that. Okay, I missed out on 10 years of sexuality because I didn't decide to go turn gay or any of that. I'm heterosexual through and through, despite my father's sexual abuse. But I'm just like, no, man. I did nothing. When I was taken out of the normal schooling system, I went into care homes, and instead I went from like probably about 10 or 15 subjects at school to like 6. One of which was technical drawing. I got the second highest grade in my whole county of 97% of technical drawing because I've got that kind of brain. So then when I got to prison, I was like, wow, all those subjects I missed out on. Music, taught myself music, geography, history, philosophy, literature. I read all the Russian literary classics, the French, the Italian, whatever. I read all the translations and read so much stuff. And I educated myself. So I didn't waste my life. But the thing is, most people my age have done half of what I've done. Yeah. I've only had half of their life free.
For sure. Colorful life, and that's what it's about, experience.
17 different countries. I left... The catering department, I kept getting in trouble, I was living in a truck with a chimney sticking out the roof, and it was 20 minutes from college, and if it was pissing with rain and I just finished at 1 in the morning in the bar and I had to get up at 7 in the morning to go in the catering department, I was like, well, you know what? The computer room's quite comfy. If you get some of those sofa things, put them under the computer tables, crash out, go to sleep. I did that. Cleaner way. And when you're a student, you can do that shit and it's okay. But when you're a member of staff, suddenly it's not okay.
Right.
So I kind of, the cleaner woke me. Normally I'd answer the alarm before the cleaners. This occasion the alarm didn't go off or didn't set it right, whatever. So I wake up. The cleaner's waking me up. So she reports me. That guy working in the kitchen department, he's asleep in the computer room. He's a member of staff and he's not a student anymore. So they go. In the end, they were like, another meeting, another dressing down. Christian, what's going on, man? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, listen, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to Georgia. I've been invited to go to the country of Georgia in straight after. I was the food officer for the May Ball. I spent £18,000 on food, ice cream and sweets for a party that started at 9 in the evening and finished at 3 in the morning for 600 people. The most amount of money I've ever spent legally in my life.
that was the Mayball of Cambridge.
Cambridge May Ball. I was food officer. I spent 18 grand legally. I invited my pizza friend.
Were you tempted?
Oh, yeah, man. I was like, bank details now. Stop that. But then my friend had bought a Russian school bus. I put up marquees at festivals for a few years, and I met him making pizzas. And then I put up marquees and make pizzas and make twice as much money at the weekends at the festivals. Right. He bought a Russian school bus. He's going to Georgia. I said, right, I'm good at converting vehicles. I'm mechanics, all that shit. I'll help you. I want to help you. I want to come to Georgia. So I said to the catering department, listen, I'm leaving straight up. The day after the May Ball, I'm going to leave. And they went, you promise? At which time, that kind of like, my Cambridge experience was tarnished a little from being a student to a member of staff. And it was a good time to leave. Now I'm back on good terms with it all. So I went to Georgia. Did the May Ball, success. Even last year's May Ball, people were saying to me, do you know what, your one was, they missed 2 years because of COVID, but they said your food selection was a lot better than this year.
Right. Okay. Well, we could go on and on and on, and your 250 page memoir is up to about 4,000 pages at the moment. Yeah. So, but it's great. I mean, whatever, people could watch it. It's an interesting interview. I just put it out there, and but we can't end the interview because everything is possible, and you're living proof of that. I watched a documentary last night with my wife about this guy who climbed 14 8,000-meter peaks under 7 months. Everyone said it was impossible. He called the possibility tour, and he did it. So you've taken your life, you turned it around. But tell that great story about the Isle of Wight, and we can end it on that note because this is like a true anything is possible. And how you got to be scared sometimes to really do it. Face the fear. This guy last night, he faced a lot of fear. You have, I'm sure, faced a lot of fear in your life. And tell this story because this is a great way to end this lovely interview.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up with one of my girlfriends, and we were on the Isle of Wight, and we decided to go on holiday to Cornwall. It was with other people's credit cards, someone else's car, and some other people's credit cards that were came to us through the underworld, I guess. So we ended up getting caught in Cornwall and taken back to the Isle of Wight, and I was put in prison. And every week I
sorry, quick Isle of Wight. Just explain where that is.
It's mid south of England, an island across the River Solent from Southampton, Portsmouth, kind of things. The Isle of Wight. It's a small island, and it's
England's Alcatraz.
It's kind of like England's Alcatraz, I suppose. So anyway, I was going to court every week, and then this 1 week at court, I decided okay, next week they're going to commit me to Crown Court next instead of Magistrates Court. That means that next time the prison officers are going to be dealing with me, and they're going to handcuff me, and security's a lot more strong than it is a lot more tight than it is with the police. So I thought, today's my day. So when he opened the door to let me out to the police van, I was gone. I just ran, and the guy chased me, and there was no way he was going to catch me. So I ended up disappearing. I ran up this kind of viaduct, and there was a hill at the side of it. So each arch of the viaduct got smaller and smaller and smaller until I clamber onto this tiny little archway, and then I crawl over. And there's someone I'm actually crawling over, this homeless guy who's sleeping under his blankets. I was like, what the hell? Hey, man, have you got enough for a cup of tea? I was like, no, I ain't got any money, man. I just escaped. And he's about to try and leave. I said, sorry, mate, you ain't going anywhere. There's loads of police out there, and they're going to ask you if you've seen me, and you're staying here, man. Wait till it was dark, which wasn't long because it was like 3 in the afternoon. I ran away. It was winter, like hour and a half. Left the place, asked a local, where's this road I was looking for? They're close. And he said, oh, it's just there. I couldn't believe it. It was like 100 yards away. Great. Knocked on my friend's door. He said, Christian, I thought you were in prison. I said, well, I was, man. I just escaped.
And where did you know him from?
Prison.
Good connections. You made it work for you.
I made a lot of connections in prison, of course. But on that occasion, I had not written him a letter from the prison I was in currently. Otherwise, they would have knocked on his door and searched his house. But regardless, he said, come in. It's going to be on the radio and the television. I said, don't be stupid. And it was. He said, don't worry. And it was beautiful. I was in there. It was Christmas trees. The kids were there with the presents under there. I just come from a prison environment. All these colourful Christmas presents and lights. I was like, oh, nice cup of tea. And do you want a spliff? And do you want this and that? I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. He had a house where he rented out rooms. In one room, he kept for himself, for, you know, when he wanted a bit of whatever with somebody who wasn't his wife. Okay. So he took me there and he said, right, I'll put you up here. There's a television, there's an electric bar fire and a double bed. Brilliant. He gave me some cannabis and he gave me some beer. He said, I'll come and see you every day. So I'm there watching the police in the pissing rain, freezing cold, December 14th, 15th, 16th, looking for me on the ferry terminals. And I'm smoking a spliff, drinking the beer, and nice and warm and toasty. Oh, this is a bit warm, take a shirt off, you know. They're freezing it. Anyway, I phoned my people up back in Farnborough and said, listen, yeah, you've escaped. We know, man. It's all over the TV. I was like, oh, dang, okay. So they sent me some money over, and then I paid someone, and then we end up driving. A week after, when the police think they've stopped looking so much on the ferry, they think I've gone.
By this time, you're gone. You're off the Isle of Wight. They figure, yeah.
They don't realise I've got connections there, and I've been like nice and cosy in a room watching them freeze their tits off. So my friend arranges some friends, and then they come down. They got a car. We got a big quilt in the back of the car in the boot, and then we drive down to the ferry terminal. Mile or two before the ferry terminal, open the boot, throw the quilts in there. I get inside the boot, slam the boot shut. Can you breathe? Yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. If I can't, I'll bang the wall. If I bang the car, if you hear some banging, stop and let me out. I'm dying.
Okay. Facing that fear.
Facing that fear. I needed to escape, man. I needed freedom, not incarceration. So they got on the ferry and they said, right, park the car. Right, we're going up to the bar. Have a beer for me. See you in a while. Keep quiet. Don't know who's going to be around or anything, or even who's going to open the boot next. After an hour or so, hour maybe, they come back to the car, right? You okay in there? Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, cool, right? They drive off the ferry, drive to the nearest train station, bam, drop me off, go and buy me a train ticket, come back, give me the train ticket, I'll get on the train, I'm free.
So the next person who opened that boot was your mates, not police.
Friends, and I offered them some money, and they said, we don't want no money, man. We just want to fuck the system.
Cool. So now you're mainland England, and what do you do?
I was mainland England, and I went back.
You're still wanted.
I'm still wanted. I went back to my hometown, and this was before television was nationalised, so it was all like localised television. And I was all over my local television. So I went back to my hometown and realised very quickly that wasn't a good idea. So then I went to Bristol, HTV instead of TVS, Television South, whatever HTV means. So no one was looking for me in Bristol. So I stayed there for a little while, and then I went from there. I ended up going back to Hampshire, but not my hometown, a place called Basingstoke, and it was a traveller's site with people living in buses and trucks with the chimneys and the smoke pouring out the river. And then the police, someone grasped me up, someone informed on me, said I was where I was, because, you know, in my game with drugs and crime, you always end up with enemies. Someone informed on me, and then right in the evening, I was asleep with my little dog called Baggage in this caravan with the wood burner going, and suddenly there's a torch shining at me, and Christian, now come on, don't, no, there's about 6 police because they know how violent I can be. Right. Christian, you're surrounded, there's nothing you can do, don't even struggle, just come with us, please, quietly, come with us quietly, which I kind of did.
Right. And then what happened? You got back to, banged up?
To the jail, and then I spent another few weeks, and I saw...
In Isle of Wight?
On the Isle of Wight, yeah, then actually I was allowed to leave the Isle of Wight and go back to Winchester Prison on the mainland because it was better for my visits. And even the governor then just said, I know you have any of your old tricks, you're going straight back to the Isle of Wight. You just keep down, head down, otherwise you're going back, right? A few weeks later, I went to court in Winchester and they said, right, you've done enough time for all your crimes and even the escape. You've done enough, you're free to go.
Was that your last stint in prison?
No, that was in 1987. I had another 10 years to go, man.
Okay, so and then we've worked together and we've done it. And I've heard so many of the stories. I hope this has tweaked some of your interest and showed that anything is possible. This guy is, half of the things.
Man, you can do anything. Anything's possible. It don't matter about you. And this is why I'm writing my memoir, because the shit that happened to me in there, like when I was a young kid and everything, you can overcome that shit. People are just like sitting at home, self-medicating, and I don't know what, depressed, and not, and they're just like, there's nothing I can do about my upbringing. Rubbish. You can overcome anything, and you can go anywhere. You can decide to do anything, and you can do anything.
Whoa, there you go. What more to say, Christian? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Joe Diomede, TTRP TV from Toulouse with Christian Austin. Look him up in other interviews and look for his memoir. Take care, be well, and make sure you always remember that
Anything is possible. World peace, man. Even world peace is possible.
Thank you. Bye.